Jacob Rees-Mogg once again haunts us. In 2022, I don't know whether you remember, he brought in a policy that banned or essentially sought to ban anyone from government events who had perhaps said something that Jacob Rees-Mogg didn't like. That's about as close as we've got to a rationale for this. Dan Casita is, he's a world-renowned expert and a associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, specialising in chemical, biological, radiological weapons and warfare. You were due to speak, Dan. Thanks for coming in at a government event, unpaid.
Unpaid, yes.
At a government conference. You'd been booked, as we say.
Yes, indeed.
And then you received the following letter.
Yes. Dear Dan, we extended an invitation to you as a guest speaker to the Chemical Weapons Demilitarization Conference, and we're glad you accepted. Thank you for your interest in the conference and support. Rules introduced by the Cabinet Office in 2022 specify that the social media accounts of potential speakers must be vetted before final acceptance to the program. This is to check whether these people have ever criticized government officials or government policy. The vetting process is impartial and purely evidence-based. The check on your social media has identified material that criticizes government officials and policy. It is for this reason, and not because we do not value your technical insight, that I'm afraid we have no choice and must cancel your invitation to the CWD conference. I hope this does not come as too much of a shock. Sorry while I laugh. And wish you well in your research studies relevant to chemical and biological arms control. It is good that you strive to achieve a world permanently free of such weapons. Best wishes. And I'm not going to name the official.
No, because he sounds like he's got a gun held to his head.
Well, it sounds like you said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah. So, more than 25 years' experience in the field, addressing the Chemical Weapons Demilitarization Conference in London. You must have, I've had a look through your Twitter, presuming it would be some sort of sewer. Well, you seem to be some sort of liberal Democrat.
Yes, tragically, yes. I'm everybody's worst nightmare. I'm a radical centrist who really thinks that actually we should be nice to each other most of the time.
It'll never catch on. Do you have any inkling of what it might have been that set off their radar?
Well, I don't know. I mean, The Guardian wrote about this. The Guardian points to whether this is based on just the Guardian speculating or whether the Guardian has some insight as to what the tripwire was. The Guardian points to two things. The Guardian points to a thread of tweets that I retweeted comparing Nadine Dorris to a car crash.
A series of car crashes.
A series of car crashes, color-coded. I thought it was funny, and thousands of people seem to have retweeted that. And I also did do a tweet referring to a Afghan military pilot who had fought for this country, who wasn't able to get out of Afghanistan by approved means, came over on a small boat, and he was facing deportation to Rwanda.
Yes.
And I said, bloody Tories.
And those are the two.
Those are the two examples that the Guardian put at.
Having trawled through your Twitter.
Well, I mean, there's more.
Forensically.
I don't know how many tweets I've got out there. Probably 750,000. I am.
And you hate people who are on Twitter all the time.
Oh well.
Honestly.
Yes.
Just for context, you have worked in the U.S. Secret Service.
Yes.
You have worked in Bill Clinton's and George W. Bush's administrations as a chemical weapons expert. You give advice to governments around the world.
And international organizations.
Including the police in the UK.
Yeah. Interpol. I sit on a panel at Interpol.
And Jacob Rees-Mogg's rule has excluded you from offering your thoughts to a government-sponsored conference on your field of expertise.
Yes. Ironically, a conference that in the past historically has had officials from the Chinese Ministry of Defense.
Well, they're not on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Well, if they are, nobody has the skill set to interpret them.
Not
perhaps.
yet.
I don't know. It's a conference that I actually spoke at 2 years ago without issue.
I'm obviously bringing a degree of levity to the subject.
Oh, yeah, it is kind of funny. It's
kind of Kafkaesque, which is for once an accurate word to use in this context.
Well, yeah. Although people keep pointing to the wrong Kafka, it's just, people keep pointing to, I've not turned into a cockroach. It's Kafka's castle. I keep trying to find the castle, the Castellan, and nobody will let me talk to him.
There's two elements now to how this affects you. How does it affect you professionally? How does this because you've chosen to go public. Some people may not have done. It's estimated that about 8 other people may have been in in a similar situation from quite different backgrounds.
Well-
This is speakers banned from government events by a completely unaccountable and opaque vetting scheme. So what impact might it have on you?
Well, is it restraint of trade? In which case, it's I mean, I'm a consultant, a writer, an author in this exact field. Now, this is not a field where there is a huge amount of private sector activity. This is, the struggle against chemical and biological weapons, against chemical and biological terrorism. This is by definition a thing that exists in the public sphere. And if I'm being excluded from a bit of the public sphere on this, that's not good. And I've done a lot.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of things that don't get talked about on my Twitter feed.
I'm sure you have.
And people come to me from this government, from other friendly governments, all the time. I mean, not daily, not weekly, but probably monthly on average.
Right.
With asking for help on a technical issue.
It's a skill set. It's a rare skill set
Yeah,
that you have.
yeah. I'm an old fart in a field where people leave early. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. In my field, people tend to do 3, 4, 5 years and find a way of escape. I'm just like the old guys still stuck in the circus, not having found a way to get out.
Which makes you very valuable
Yes.
to public discourse and private
Well,
understanding,
indeed.
political understanding of complicated issues. Have you heard anything since? Because it could be, to be charitable, it could be one of those scenarios where if Jacob Rees-Mogg were to deign to speak about the consequences of this policy he introduced, he would say, well, I didn't mean people like him.
Well, yeah. Well, in which case I'd say, well, what did you mean then? Let's get this out there. I mean, one of the reasons why I came public on this is that an invidious policy like this needs transparency. There is no transparency. Edward Lucas wrote to the Cabinet Office to ask where the rule was. Well, you can't see the rule. It's eventually going to get published, but when we do publish it, it's only going to be in the House of Parliament library.
Right.
Oh, by the way, it goes back 5 years.
Gosh.
So there's a rule that I'm expected to follow that goes back 5 years, but I can't read it. That's some, as I told the Times the other day, I'm half Lithuanian. I can smell Stalinism. And there's a whiff of Stalinism about that. Secret rules that nobody voted for. There's no act of parliament I've broken. And so if I'm caught out by this, who else is caught out by this? And is it stuff, frankly, that is more important to daily life than this? Is it infectious disease experts, emergency management experts, people with strategies on crime, people who talk about immigration and asylum seeker policy, who have valued things to say? How much expertise is being excluded from the public sphere?
You've segued into the second question I was going to ask you, which is about the impact on democracy. But you make an incredible point because of the opaqueness.
Yeah.
It means that it's not even being critical of the government that excludes you from inclusion in these sort of events. It's their perception or their insistence that you've been critical of.
Oh, yeah.
Who is allowed to contribute?
Well, yeah, and what actually is the standard is, I mean, honestly, if I want to call Jacob Rees-Mogg a wazzock, that's protected speech.
Yes. And it certainly has no impact upon your value as a chemical weapons expert.
Well, if I were a civil servant,
Sure.
yes, I'd have some administrative handcuffs on me. I'm not a civil servant. I'm a private citizen.
How do you push this? What happens next? I know Edward Lucas has taken up your case. He's a parliamentary candidate, so he has a degree of heft, but not a surfeit.
Various members of the House of Commons and the Lords have started asking questions, and I've started giving information to them. Other people have started coming forward on this, and that's part of it too, is to get other
victims.
Part of shedding light on this is to try to get this rule flushed out to the public, get the decision-making process flushed out, and I dare say when we flush that out, nobody's going to like it, but also to ferret out, other people who've been affected.
Yes, of course.
And some people, and a lot of people won't know they've been affected because
the invitation never arrived.
Yeah, or there's a million and one ways to uninvite somebody without saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes, of course there is. Sorry, we've had a bit of a rethink. I hear producers doing it here all the time.
Yeah.
We've had a bit of a rethink. The running order's changed, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch.
All right.
Because you add us to the shoulders at the wheel of trying to get some sort of answers to what the hell is going on.
Indeed.
Normally, I balk at the use of the word Stalinism. I'm sure you do too,
Yeah.
even more with your background.
Yes, exactly.
But on this occasion, if the cap fits,
Yeah, it's you know, it's.
I think
it's
it was
nonsense.
Lenin. It was
Yeah.
Lenin that wore the cap. No, it was Stalin that
Yeah.
wore the cap. If the
Yeah.
cap fits,
Yeah.
then crack on. Danke Sita. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, this is a huge. Oh, briefly and slightly flippantly. Presumably, you've been inundated with support from the Free Speech Union and the right-wing media and the kind of people that were at the Nazi conference last week and banging
no.
on all the time about free speech.
No, answer
Oh.
came there none. Crickets. Silence.
Well, perhaps now they will be in touch.
Well, we'll see.